quorum, so we can get started. No, Deb may be dropping off some children at school, so let's get started. Welcome to the October Sustainability Committee meeting. We do have somebody online, Michaela Lacrosse. Welcome. With that, we had been passed on the minutes from the September meeting. I think I was in Amsterdam when you were meeting, and I was probably riding a bicycle because there are more bicycles in Amsterdam than there are cars. And my wife was a real trooper because we went on about a 6-hour bike ride through the city. And she was a bit white knuckled most of the time, but it was a great vacation. But anyway, the minutes have been passed on. Entertain a motion to get those into the record. So moved by Patricia. Any second? Thank you much. Any discussion? I will not be voting on this as I wasn't there, but we do have enough for a quorum to put it into the record. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And I abstain. The next item is any changes to the agenda, and here's Deb, and we can wait. Oh, and Lydia. Tag teaming. We just got started, so I hope you didn't have any issues with the minutes because we just put them into the record. A second. Oh, okay. Jamie put together a pretty good agenda, but I want to open it up in case anybody from the committee has something they want to bring forward into new business. Hi, Autumn. Seeing none, I guess the agenda will go as listed here. Would like to now open up to public comment. We do have a guest, as I mentioned, from the public, and we're happy to unmute you if you have any comments you want to make.
Michaela, if you'd like to speak, you can just raise your hand and we'll know to unmute you.
All right. She is trying to talk, I think. Oh, no, that's
No,
you,
that's
Jamie. All right, very good. Then we'll close public comment and move on to old business. And I think the meat of old business will be the EV charger ordinance that we've been discussing over the last couple of months. Jamie, do you want to provide a brief and next steps here?
Sure. So as I noted in, I'm just gonna put this up here. As I noted in the email that I sent yesterday, our electrical inspector did another review of this and had some additional suggestions or revisions. And so I sent out a revised version to you all yesterday. So he basically changed switchgear to equipment where EV charger circuits are to originate. He felt like that kind of was a little bit more general and would fit better. And Anton, you provided a revision as well that I can pull up if people want to take a look at that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
We're all on. Let me see if I can pull
I
that.
mean, you can add or change or whatever.
Sneaking all over the meeting.
I think they both say the same thing.
We weren't trying to require all equipment, were we? I thought that was the whole point of what we're trying to change.
So it's basically, we're not saying that the equipment necessarily needs to be installed. It does still say that there's sufficient space to accommodate the future capacity,
Well,
so.
It's conduit installed and the electrical panels and equipment to be installed.
So we can change that maybe to say, change the word in the second installed there,
John wants to make sure the panels have room to put the extra breakers, like in the homes and everything, that's what he's thinking.
Yeah, because then you have to replace the whole panel.
Yeah, you don't want a small, and most are good with, John's coming from a single family home, probably, place, rather than a commercial.
a commercial, yeah.
Was,
I just
was,
realized I don't have my glasses.
I tried to rewrite this a little bit. Now, whether you like what I wrote or not is something else again, but
Let me see if I can get that on the screen too.
I understand and agree with Deb's observation. I think that we're very close to our original concept, which was to have space and conduit. And therefore I'm leaning toward Anton's view.
I thought Dan Bacon's big objection was he didn't want to install transformers.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Am I correct in saying that?
I think so.
Well, you could, yeah. You could say we'll have necessary conduit installed along with electric panels and necessary equipment to accommodate, and then you could add one so that this does not include transformers. I mean, just make it clear and right.
What other necessary equipment are we considering?
Well, there'd be circuit breakers that wouldn't necessarily have to be purchased at the time, but there's a slot in the panel to install that circuit breaker.
Well, that's not and necessary equipment. I mean, that's sufficient space in the electrical panel. And I'm not even. And they're probably putting in a new electrical panel to have another
Just for
bank
those.
of chargers. But
Or you could go with specific identification, what in fact needs to be installed. You know, what encompasses necessary equipment? I don't know what it is because I'm not an electric guy, but
I mean.
I mean,
my-
circuit breakers or bus boxes or whatever.
I thought it was space for necessary equipment.
Well, that was the whole, way back when, that was the mindset, is at least have the capacity in which later on you could go in and easily
Yeah.
install. And because you're purchasing switchgear group equipment, why not purchase it? It's like putting conduit under the pavement while you're building. Why not put in the switchgear that would have the room for the electrical panel or
Well,
the electrical service?
And that was the original wording that was sent out prior to the meeting, spoke to switchgear.
I still trouble around this transformer thing because theoretically, they're gonna put a transformer in anyway. Now, I get it that they may have to put a larger capacity transformer, and that's understandable. Size the transformer for what your load's gonna be today. But then if you fill in those empty spaces, you may have to put a larger transformer in. Chances are it's probably gonna fit on the same pad. But at least you don't have to purchase this big transformer when you don't have the load to support the sizing. That's how I read, and I think, you know, that's where Dan's Bacon's coming from. Most of them are gonna have a transformer, because they're bringing it in from the. And it's underground, because we're requiring underground wiring, so they bring it up, they gotta put a transformer there to boost down from 37,000 volts down to.
He was talking about needing an additional transformer to.
I think that's I don't accept that as a.
I think he was concerned about the level of.
He was concerned about the level twos as well.
Yeah, but his real concern about that. So I'm sorry, I like ran off to get my glasses, but I touched base with John,
Yeah.
about this.
And really quickly, I think we need two different definitions for single family and commercial when we, to discern the difference between them, because they can be different wording for both, and I think that might make it easier. We're trying to create one definition. Because his concern is, you can have room in the panel, but if you don't have amperage coming to the home, it doesn't matter if you have room anyway, so we need to get both of them. So I was just gonna throw that out there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that we separate, we can just do two different, and it's really defined.
Yeah.
And then the single family homes are easier.
All right, so he was coming from the mindset more of a single family home and not of the,
I
A
think he's
commercial
trying to
application.
consider everything, but he's like, you gotta have room and you have to have power coming in, so you have to have both things. Cause conduit,
right,
you don't have capacity here. That's the thing.
Well, if you put in the new definition,
mhm,
and I don't think it was just for commercial, and we did different definitions for residential. If you just move the with sufficient space in front of the word equipment and whatever other articles you might need to make that work.
mhm.
The space is for the equipment. We're not requiring the equipment, requiring the space for the equipment.
Yep.
Then I think this fits what we were trying to accomplish.
As I recall, Dan Bacon was talking about power allocation, how
Yeah.
much power would be required and everything. And the way I interpreted it, which is possibly incorrect, was by installing transformers, then it would have to be power allocated, and CMP didn't have that much power and all of that. How does this all, I thought most of the conversation was revolving around level 3 chargers and transformers and whatnot.
Yeah, that, I think that is his bigger concern is, the cost of the transformers for the future level 3s, because as we discussed last meeting, we're gonna scale back the requirements for level 3s. So just giving them some flexibility so that they're not having these very high upfront costs when it may be years and years
Can
before
you
they.
say all necessary equipment except transformers?
Well, I think we can also add in there and space to accommodate future transformers or something like that.
Future equipment, let's leave it at that and not
Yeah.
get too,
That's
too specific.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what Costco did, they just put in a pad.
That's
I
unacceptable.
was gonna
We
say,
know that.
Rick, how do you feel about that?
We have it on recording that they said they were gonna put
Yeah.
in 2 level 3 chargers.
Someday.
That's not why we approved, we voted because of.
You gotta write those NODs, we gotta be really hard, but they put in that pad, so they don't have the transformer there
Yeah.
now. Or anything, but in the future, when they put them in, they have space for it, so they can't argue, no, we have to.
Rip
find
up
this
everything,
location
yeah.
For this, right, so that might be,
So that's really what we're
is
looking
that
for.
really what
level
you're looking
threes.
for?
Like, I think that they would have met the level 3 requirements that we're talking about, as long as the conduit's there and the pad is there, and they're like.
Well, I don't think
Well,
they would have
didn't
met it
install it.
with our
Numbers,
current
yeah.
ordinance.
No,
That
they
would
didn't.
change it.
So you're gonna change to where you don't have to install any level things?
Yes, because level 3s are for the most part being installed by outside.
Right,
entities.
totally get
So we're
that.
not gonna require the grocery store or whatever to.
So are you just gonna strike the level 3? That would be easier. Why not?
No, because we want them to have the space.
They need to plan for a future installation.
But if a third party is gonna come in and do it, I'm just being devil's advocate, because that's like what I like to do at 8:50 in the morning. If you're gonna allow them not to put it in, and a third party is gonna come in.
But won't
Why
a third
is it-
party need the space when they come in eventually?
Yeah, but they would find the areas where they can have the space. It's kind of like me saying, I'm gonna build a house. And I'm gonna build a pad, so someday whoever buys it in the future can put it in their garage. But I'm not gonna have a garage. I'm just kind of trying to think that through, like, what if we were that?
Yeah, maybe where they choose to put the space is not where the people who are gonna put the level 3 charger in would wanna put it in.
Based on their customers or based on.
Yeah, I'm just, it might not be the most visible, like, yeah, we'll put you a pad out back by the dumpster, right?
I was just kind of thinking that, sorry, I wasn't here last time, I was getting my fitted camera. I just wonder, if it wouldn't be more advantageous to create like a level 3 kind of a use and where it could go, and if you're not gonna make anybody install it, so you decided you're not gonna make anybody install level 3s.
Right.
But that ultimately means that you're gonna be tearing up parking lots and whatnot to put in conduit,
But
right?
maybe not, I mean, if level 3 installation is gonna be market driven, the folks that install level 3 chargers are going to find the places or the open ground where they can put them in at the most economical way, because they're not gonna talk me into someone who has this great parking lot and grocer to tear up my space. Unless it's a great price, and then sure, you can do it, and then it doesn't matter, they're gonna tear it up and replace it. I'm just wondering, we're putting the burden on the originator of the use without having the user or even making sure it's the right space.
Maybe we need to have a quick conversation with EVgo or one of the charge companies.
Yeah, I would say have, whoever has to follow this to designate an area for future use for level 3.
Mm.
Just to draw it out. And it's usually gonna be far away from the prime parking, because the everyday people running in and out, they wanna be close to the entrance. So it's gonna be way over on the edge of the property. And just say, just mark that on their plan for future development. In the level 3, people are gonna come in. They're gonna order their own service from CMP, their own transformer. They're gonna do that whole design, the disconnect, the metering. There's a lot of equipment, a lot of protection equipment. And a lot of expense. And they do not want a pad. Because you lay all the conduit first, then you pour the pad over the conduit. And so for level 3, say just designate an area, so that way you get them thinking, okay. But that way they don't have to size their transformer for the building for level 3, which is ridiculous. And then the vendor will come in. That way you get them thinking about it.
I like that idea, but from some of, I've never met you.
Oh.
I'm Autumn, I'm the planning director.
Paul.
So from the
And
site
Paul-
development
So
process.
Paul, what do you do? Are you the electrical engineer?
No, that's my profession, but I'm just a resident.
Okay.
I'm just sitting in.
So from a site development process, if I come in with a site plan review and I'm going to designate a space for impervious, I have to do stormwater and all of the other requirements, and that's going to take away from my buildable space. And so I can't sell that. I can't honestly tell somebody, you have to set aside 10% of your property for this future user.
Well, they would have to kind of do what like the hotel did when Tesla came in, is come have a site plan amendment.
Yeah, but that was,
What's your-
they already had parking spaces and they just had to get approval for that. And that's what I think is gonna actually happen. I don't think the grocers and the home goods stores are going to ever install it. They're gonna have somebody come and contact them and say, we wanna do this, you're in a prime location. We wanna do this, and they're gonna do it. And
It'd be driven by the market,
yeah,
I think.
it's totally
And-
market driven.
And I wouldn't be opposed to dropping level 3s, in our ordinance at this point, if we firmly believe that the market will drive this. And, that's all we have to do, right? Is hope that there's enough EV purchasers and demand for them that stores will do it. Deb?
Well, I think it still is worth asking the installers, like one of these companies, just like, is there something that would make it easier? Like, is there something that they could do at construction time that would make it easier?
We don't even know what's gonna go in there at this point. I mean, they may not even do this level of commercial development. You know,
I mean, it just stinks because that would be very costly. So how soon will this happen with the market? Kind of takes away a little bit of the teeth in our ordinance for sure.
Well, I think the ordinance, I think it's good having this ordinance because it addresses level 2 chargers,
Yeah,
which is obviously something critical for the people there. The other part of the Dan, not to get off this topic, but Dan Bacon's presentation was he wanted to have cluster chargers and all kinds of other things that would have impacted residents. I think that's a whole separate topic.
Yeah, and we
from
have
this.
an update to share with that too, but we'll do that when we get through this discussion.
Okay. I mean, a grocery store may or may not happen. You know,
Well, and this ordinance applies to the whole town,
Right.
so we may.
can't look
get
at
some-
just from-
Yeah.
oh, yeah, okay,
we have
okay.
to think
from
about the
down
whole-
from
Yeah,
one person.
I get it. Yeah.
And so, if Reading Hill ever gets sewer and it's got the zoning for big boxes, So I'm thinking that we create a section in here that talks about level 3s and what we want them to look like and require and how that site plan might work. Maybe give them. Maybe do away with requirements to make it easier. So if you have a company and you want to install those, then it's it's an easier route to come in. Because really, no lot sizes and all that sort of stuff, right? So there could be some easier things to do. And then the level 2s and do different definitions for commercial and single family, so that's really clear. And then stick to your requirements for that. The level 3s are tough because they're really expensive and it's more market driven and it's it seems like a hindrance for people. That's not their business. I get that, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
That's not your what you do, you have to go find a vendor so you can open a grocery store to run that doesn't seem fair.
I wouldn't be opposed to having somebody come and tell us what do they look for, when they're out selling their level 3 charger services. Be nice to hear what they say, and maybe they can give us some market analysis that they have done as to what they feel is an appropriate. Maybe they've looked at Scarborough and said, well, here's where we can do business in Scarborough. It's very unlikely that it's extra expensive if you already have a site built and they want to come in secondhand. That's gonna really increase costs. So I wonder if there's, something that we could do based on the number of parking spots and sizing. Because we do want the owners to think about this. They're coming into Scarborough. There's, value added if they do this.
Outside of Tesla, who puts in these type of chargers, like
ChargePoint,
give me an example?
Yeah, there's a lot of like nationwide.
Well, I just, my sister I know just bought a Volkswagen electric and as part of her purchase, it comes with however many months or years of charging. But there's not any place in Scarborough where she can
Do it.
use her subscription.
There's there is a bank of chargers from ChargePoint at like Walmart. and things
Walmart
like that.
got some, yeah.
So, yeah, there are a couple.
Electrify America.
Yeah, there are some national kind of
Are the
networks.
Walmart ones level 3?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are.
But so that parking lot existed?
Yeah, and it was pretty expensive to put in. They got a grant.
Oh.
And there's probably gonna be grant money available.
And the Tesla that went in the Fairfield Inn, it didn't seem like it was really that big of a deal. for them.
Well, if
Added
you just look at Costco and say, well, they're gonna put it the furthest away. Then the electrical infrastructure will have to somehow get over there.
I think they would do a service drop from the street.
Yeah, so that
They
means
wouldn't
another
even-
pole and wires and,
But they wouldn't even have to go into the building,
right, agreed.
because it's
It'd be on
very,
a circuit.
very, very high current draw. So,
There
yeah.
was an enormous talk about the ones that were put in the interstate there by the York Plaza, Toll Plaza. They were put in and CMP waived the demand charges for a while.
Yeah,
Because it is very,
it's more
high
demand than a
consumption.
whole building.
yeah,
So. So I think they'll look for, I think if I was EVgo. Electrify, I look for a place with, three-phase.
three-phase power that you can,
13 8-volt, KVA. Lots of parking, so you could get in and out away from buildings in case there's a fire in one of the cars. And yeah, just like raw, it's open land to build the pad and everything.
And that's what we wanna make sure that there is,
Yeah,
open land to build the pad.
yeah. A lot of those companies are on shaky ground. Right now, you see them consolidating and the chargers don't work. Like Electrify America, they're awful. They give you that free charging, but they're really difficult. And they're consolidating and they're merging and there's new ones. So it's a very very new industry and there's gonna be a lot of changes.
I will say that a commercial parking lot is not an allowed use. So say they came in and they said, we found this parcel, it's right smack dab in the middle of, everything. Can we do this? I'd have to say no.
So it needs to be associated with.
with a building.
Yeah. But,
Commercial parking, what do you mean?
well, like just a commercial parking lot is not permitted. So is that
Oh, to just
something?
build a parking.
Yeah, so is that
Oh, yeah.
something, I mean, we're not necessarily incentivizing the users, I feel like this is more of an economic development outreach and
Mhm.
it's easy to do, here we've already created this way you can do it,
Well, we don't want a new parking lot with,
but you wouldn't, but what if,
because we want it to be, where people
But
use
what-
these is where there's something to do. while
Right.
it charges.
but what if I'm talking about a piece of land like an out parcel that's in existing development. Like there is an out parcel in front of, next to Red Robin, is that what it is? Right there in the front, right? And so they talked to us about a bank, whatnot, they have so many things. But what if they came in and said, we want to do a bank of chargers here, and we want to do that? My answer would be no.
Even though the parking lot's there?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you, like, I
Okay,
don't
well,
have
let's
that.
fix that.
Okay, so that's what I'm thinking, like, in those
Well, I was
situations,
gonna ask how that would apply to the downs then also, if
That's
they
what
wanna
I'm
do.
saying, like,
shared
what if-
parking.
they do, maybe this grocer is not associated, but in 4 or 5 years, when things get built out, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna make bank, we need to put this in, the uses, people are buying these more and more, and they wanna come in and grab this little 1/4 acre piece, I would have to create a use for it. So I'm just thinking, maybe we want it, we still wanna incentivize it, but we have to come about it a little bit different way.
So would you almost put in just an exception to say that they are allowed if it's an EV charging lot, or would you just allow commercial parking lots?
No, I was thinking we'd actually create a use for an EV charging lot and that really says to folks, we want you to come
Mhm.
and then. Maybe we come
Hmm.
up with
It's an
like
interesting-
some incentives, like your site plan fees are waived and things like that. Just some interesting ways to actually entice people to come and say, ooh, Scarborough really wants this. Let's look at Scarborough a little harder. More of an economic development outreach than backwards.
Mhm.
Oh, it's just a way to think about it.
Mhm.
So ideally, you want to go to these companies and be like, we want you in town, right? But then we don't want you to come and show up to my office and I go, ooh. That's not
allowable use.
I'd love for you to do this, but it's gonna take me 6 months to change the ordinance for
Yeah.
you.
Can
So I'm
you
just thinking,
put the language together that would let you say yes to them?
I like that.
I just volunteered myself.
Well, you understand what it is you need.
And then, I mean, let me even talk with Karen Martin in Economic Development and see if there's any outreach and things that we could do kind of to be on the front of this. So I'm not trying to say take it away because it's a bad idea. I'm trying to say, let's figure out how to really get what we want.
I like that.
I mean, we could even, this group could even put together some information that she could hand out, you know, just proactive sort of. So it's not, I don't know enough about it, like you all do, and you could come up with some literature and some information about what we're really looking for.
So at our last meeting, I think we actually did, we hadn't completely struck the requirement for level threes. We are going to scale it back significantly. At this point, do we want to remove the requirement from the ordinance for planning for level three charging?
Unless there, we want some reserved space. And that, I think we need to talk to somebody from one of these installers to understand what their space requirements are. And what we could describe in ordinance that would ensure that they could come in. Yes. They chose to.
Mhm.
I have a good friend at Charge Point. I don't know how that works in terms of asking somebody.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind reaching out and seeing, we'll talk about kind of timing for that, because we also have to talk about. Our next meetings are gonna run up against Thanksgiving and Christmas, so we'll have to talk about our next few meeting schedules, but that would be great. Yeah, and if you just wanna like connect us.
sure, yeah,
I
I'll do that.
I can do that. Coordination.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Even if we could talk to him or her before.
Yeah.
Just to
Sure.
kind of brainstorm that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I had alluded to the fact that we have an update on the kind of the additional changes that the Downs is looking for. Autumn actually went to them and said, give us some language that spells out what you're looking for and for us to review and consider, rather than us spending time like this trying to come up with language that may not suit their needs. So it's knowing kind of where they're coming from, and then we'll be able to have a starting point to respond to and go back to them with. And we also had a discussion that Autumn and I did that the Downs is just kind of different from other areas. It is a large planned development, and so maybe there should be something in the zoning that kind of calls out the fact that their requirements may be different because they are a centralized large scale development, as opposed to like a new grocery store, a new box store that's going in, something like that. So they may have different requirements based on their zoning related to EV charging. And so we'll kind of figure out what that may look like.
Would that be inserted into the,
I think
Zone-
the CPD district should be, it's just have all the stuff.
well, they've
right?
already got, I mean, they,
Because there's a lot of it they borrowed from other districts, you
Mhm.
know, and that don't make sense. Uses and things like that, but then they have special things that do make sense.
and then that would also bring in long-range planning.
Mhm.
And so that would be helpful.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I just put the burden back on them.
That's, no, I think, I mean, it's their, they have the
tired.
vision,
Yeah.
they have the vision and,
Yeah, tell me what
the
you're,
request,
let
and
me
they
know
go on their
what
vision.
you think.
you know, well, the town owes it to the residents to make the best decisions for everybody. So I think it's a logical step.
Cause their idea of shared, EV charging might look great. for-
It might.
It just might not work for something else, cause their apartments, while they're next to each other, are really close, you know, they're interchangeable, so
Right, their
They're-
shared resources
they're
are
shared.
different than anywhere
Yeah.
else in town.
it's totally different.
Yeah,
So we'll see
yeah,
what they come
burden
back
on
to us
them
with.
because it's their concept of plan.
Okay, good.
All right,
Next item on the agenda, if we're done with that and moving on.
I think we are.
Okay, is just a report out from Sustainable Scarborough Day. So thanks to those of you who were able to join us for the day. Many of you around the table were there. So I think I would say we were on par with our attendance from last year. We had another beautiful day. I think the EVs were better positioned this year. So that Patrice came up to me at one point in the day saying, it seems like there's fewer people here, but I think the EVs were pulling some people away from time to time. So I think that we probably had at least as many people as last year, if not a few more. I loved the music. We got really great feedback from about the music.
Fabulous.
They were fantastic, really.
The food was good.
Yeah, the food was good. The activities were great. I think we ended up having around 30 vendors. We had 33 register. We had a few drop out last minute, but I don't think that was a big deal. The workshops were the one thing that were once again low attendance. So I'm gonna recommend that we just stick to kind of the outdoor displays and activities and not do workshops in the future. When it's such a beautiful day, no one wants to go sit inside and listen to a talk for 20 minutes to a half hour. So but we got good feedback on the banner. People saw the banner and liked it. Helped kind of spread the word. I think we just need to figure out how to kind of build momentum and get more people there. The timing works well with like for families with soccer and stuff, getting them, and we're very visible as families are leaving the soccer fields to come check out what's going on over at Wentworth.
It's always the market connection too,
Yeah,
and somehow
If we could
figure out how to
Market,
interconnect those two. That would be a huge
Yeah.
advantage. Anecdotally, I had following week, I had a meeting with Richard Burbank, who is the owner of Evergreen.
mhm.
And they're one of the state's largest weatherization companies, and he said he got 6 new appointments from that day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was his best show he's done. And this is the largest weatherization in the state, and he was very pleased
Oh,
with-
fantastic.
with getting that,
Well, that's-
and,
And that builds on exactly what I was just thinking was, I think probably just to enhance our experience and knowledge would be to solicit vendor feedback.
Yeah.
And just find out, roughly how much material did you give away? How many, point of.
that's an excellent idea. because we
Subscribers
could-
did you get, or, whatever their
And I did-
target was.
That's a good point, and I did send out a survey, but I did it like 2 days after the event, so maybe I should wait a couple weeks, so people might see kind of the residuals from that.
Yeah.
To get a better picture of what benefits they may have seen from participating in the event. So the one,
We should encourage demonstrations too.
yeah,
Instead of workshops, it'd be great if, there was a demonstration on how you fill a wall cavity with a mock wall with insulation. And then there's a way to empty it out and do it again, another hour later.
yeah,
But to kind of get demonstrations of things, I think is, because it's look at it more as a hands-on.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I think we should have more plants.
You won one, didn't you?
We all want.
We
Oh,
all did.
oh, oh.
I bought
Was that
so
rigged?
many.
Was that rigged?
No, I bought so many.
It was
amazing.
a fantastic model though. So for those who weren't able to
Yes.
join, the garden club at the hour, every hour had a raffle. They raffled off 8 plants every hour.
And we'll do
And it-
more.
And it got people to your booth on the
Oh my
regular,
God,
and that
yeah.
was a brilliant way to go about it. So, and there was lots of opportunities to win since.
Did you
many
gain
of us
any
didn't
new
run the
members to your
table.
club?
We've got a couple new.
Good.
We don't want too many more. 'Cause we,
Oh, what's an exclusive
I know,
club?
no, because we can't fit into places any longer. It's hard to find a free place to go, for it to have meetings and stuff. But anyway, I was disappointed about the cooking.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that was gonna be our demonstration
Yeah.
at our booth, but,
So I think, hopefully she'll wanna do it next year. And she won't have issues,
Yeah.
but, I think we need a backup too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
could
love
do-
Anton's idea to call Tom in to cook eggs for everyone. Like, well, you're telling me this at 8 AM on Sunday.
If we can figure out how to get to farmer's market though, that'd be so
Yeah.
cool, cause
Yeah.
there's a good draw, and I don't think. It's almost, it's not too far to walk, but it's not.
But it is,
comfortable
yeah.
to walk.
You can't park up there.
Yeah, So we could figure that out.
Yeah, and there's so much sustainable or farming done now, and
I know, right?
it fits so well
Fits
into the
really well.
day.
I mean, would they be willing to just move down to Wentworth for that one day? Like, we could
I'm-
put signs up here saying this.
Maybe
you know,
next year we
farmer's
get them to
market.
do it at a different location instead of just in front of the town hall, like
That's what I mean.
the Wentworth parking lot on a Sunday.
Asking like, who's in charge of that? No, but everybody can always say like, don't do it, but, cause I think they should move anyway, cause there's more parking and you can be bigger.
It's just not as visible.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
Like
catch
the
a lot of
Route
people
1.
just driving down Route
You
One.
can have the big signs, cause the public safety complains because you can't get into their buildings easily.
I will say, anyone who has a kid in soccer between 8 and noon on Saturday, I mean, there's not a free parking space to be had.
Yeah.
So that would be a big conflict, I think, would be to draw.
They're on
more
Sundays, right?
people to-
Yeah.
When is the farmer's market?
On
Sunday.
Sunday.
Sundays.
And
Yeah.
soccer Saturday?
Yeah.
I mean, there is some,
I'm in that.
My weekend is just a blur from 5 p.m. on Friday until 8 a.m. on Monday morning.
there
so-
is some soccer on Sunday, but it's not the rec soccer,
Gotcha.
it's like travel
Gotcha,
soccer, so it's a smaller.
gotcha. So that might not be a conflict after all.
But no, I was here Saturday before to put up barricades and stuff to reserve our areas for Sunday morning, and I was really surprised how many cars were still hanging out.
It's wild.
Driving in the cars was fabulous.
Yeah.
I love that. I was surprised that I went in a Tesla, how far he let me go.
Yeah, so.
How fast can you let you go?
Keep going, picture, don't come back.
They're so funny. I mean, they're car salesmen in their own
Absolutely.
Yeah.
car. Yeah. They're so enthusiastic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You go in there, they're like, got it. They're like, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
My
my husband and son rode in one and they're like, it's 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. And another, up to 104 seconds.
We called it rocket.
Yeah, like you get pushed back. I'm like, I
You gotta wear
probably
G-suits
shouldn't
in
be hearing this.
it. Well,
Yeah, we had set the course. I don't know if they like took you on the official course, but the course was to go down like next to Memorial Park and on Sawyer Road and back up to Gorham Road. And then they let you go much farther.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
he was trying to tell you. He knew who we had in the car.
So one last thing that I wanted to say is that I'm still hoping we can find ways to engage the school system.
Mm.
Because that's a huge part of the community. And whether that might be working with the environmental science teachers to offer a scavenger hunt for extra credit, or if that might be, I'm not sure how to do that,
Mhm.
because the schools have been resistant to just using advertising.
Yeah, so we did
Maybe-
get information on their community bulletin board, which April shared with me and they did post. So and they kind of link to that in their regular newsletters. They won't put stuff in their newsletter, but they'll at least post stuff in their community bulletin board section. Again, Ecos Club, we had volunteers from Ecos helping out and stuff.
I'm just
On
trying to
the day
go
of.
broader population.
Yeah,
And if we had maybe an activity packet, grade level activity packet that we provided to the teachers.
yeah,
And-
and so I
Sort of
welcome the committee to take on any of these tasks that
Yeah.
you might want to have incorporated.
And it may be that if we can just crib something that essentially exists.
Mhm.
But put some sustainable Scarborough Day branding with it.
Yep,
I was interested that the Forestry Service, they brought a trailer and it was full of activities.
yeah, so that was actually the Fish and Wildlife,
Yeah.
US Fish and Wildlife
Okay,
Service.
And they said, we felt like we were mobbed previous year. And so we brought a lot of activities and we didn't see the same.
So they
So
had,
they didn't take them out. They had all these activities and they just did the archery thing.
and I think I mean, Yeah, it's so hit or miss, like, we can't guarantee who's
Yeah.
going to be there.
It was almost too beautiful of a day too, like,
Yeah.
I really rather have been kayaking. So I mean, it was like, we might not ask for sunny, but not quite so beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Just changing.
Now,
I'm like,
you could have read it.
I can't control who shows up, I can't control the weather, I'm just
Okay,
thrilled that the
well,
past
that
2 years it's been
versus
beautiful. Yeah, and I was hoping like US Fish, they split their stuff also, and I don't know if like we had saved them a spot and tried to get them to move up closer so that they had their like archery set and then they had their trailer of activities, and if maybe it was all together rather than being split, they could have.
They
Gotten.
set up kind of weird, like on the other stuff.
For the archery, is that? what
No,
you're
no,
talking
the
about?
archery is good, but the.
Oh, yeah, in the trailer
was
too,
down.
it was
It
behind
was
them.
behind it,
Yeah.
so you couldn't.
It wasn't like everybody else was facing the center of the bus circle, but they were like
Mm, yeah,
behind it, so I
yeah,
think
that's
people just missed it and didn't really know.
I didn't know what to expect there.
Yeah, didn't necessarily, it wasn't as visible as the other ones, cause you just walk around the bus loop and you see what's
Exactly.
going on, but all of their stuff was on the sidewalk side. And so unless people were walking behind everyone else's displays, and you're right, I forgot about that and realized it like halfway through the day. I'm like, that's kind of weird that they're set up behind everything else. So yeah, that may have been part of it also, just the way it was set.
Do we want to do an e-waste next year? Because, speaking with Catherine, it's probably gonna cost around $2,000 and they're willing to try to raise it, but they need a little time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we were willing to have it incorporated this year, do it in conjunction.
Yeah.
Like I had said to her when we were speaking and they were trying to get this coordinated. It may make more sense to do it at the library because there is room for cars to like queue up and for space for the whichever vendor they have come in and to do the collection and things like that. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in the middle of the activities, because I don't know that that's necessarily a good fit, but planning it in conjunction with
What is
Sustainable
that?
Scarborough Day. People can bring their e-waste and dispose of it.
Oh, right. Just like computers and. all that kind of
Computers,
stuff.
monitors, any electronic equipment.
What about anything about like clothes and shoe, there's I mean. Recycling, there's a lot of things like, shut up.
We had talked about that for last time, and someone was like, oh, could we
That
have?
came
like a-
out as a suggestion.
Yeah,
It was pretty-
can we have a swap table or something like that? And I just feel like that is, we're.
I want to run
We're
that
gonna be
one.
left alone.
Yeah.
Right,
We don't want a rummage sale.
right,
Why not?
No, just wondering if there's.
Well, because it's
because then we have to figure out what to do with everything when it's left over.
Yeah.
So, and I will say that there are like some apparel impact drop-off points around Scarborough, so if people are looking for places to donate clothes and shoes and things like that. There's one down in Dunstan, and I think there's another.
We should make a map of all the locations and have it available on our website,
Yeah,
because I've seen more and more pop up.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
That would think, I would use that.
yeah.
But it would be fun to have a swap type of thing.
If I have enough, I would do that, sure.
We'll help you. I'll help you too. We'll do it.
Like clothing.
Yeah.
That might get the team. I
I
don't know, yeah, I'm just thinking like to draw people, it's
Yeah.
sort of like. And just, it's different.
And there's not a swap shop in Scarborough.
Yeah.
Whenever I belong to some organizations, we do that kind of thing. I have a truck and a house in Cape Elizabeth, and they have the dump.
Oh, yeah, the Cape Elizabeth
Yeah.
dump is like
The box.
bougie. People like my mother-in-law my mother-in-law is not this kind of person, but she she sneaks into the Cape Elizabeth transfer station to go to the swap shop because.
I do
so
that, but
fancy.
at the end of, when other towns doing things, at the end of the thing, when there's stuff left over, put it in my truck and take it to the Cape Elizabeth. And sometimes several loads in my truck. So kidding.
I know, like they have
If
people
they're open.
monitoring it because you're not supposed to use it unless you're a Cape resident.
Yeah, but I have a house.
No,
that-
I know, I'm just saying, like, people, it is a destination to go to the Cape transfer station, to go to the swap shop.
But also.
We'll all
the
take
job.
turns.
But also their
I know,
dump is
same.
open and they accept all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And you can just get rid.
Can't believe how much life I'm missing.
Right?
We love, I have the transfer station in our town is fantastic also when we go to the swap shop quite often. And my husband has discovered the wood pile, so he
Yeah.
goes
Yes.
diving in the wood pile to pull out scrap wood for
Totally.
projects around the house.
Ooh, I would love to have access to that.
I love when-
I have to keep my
It's
scrap
missing
wood
in
pile
Scarborough.
at my house.
Fabulous.
Does the town have, does the town have property or facilities where they could replicate what's in Cape Elizabeth? Because
Yes, we just don't necessarily have the staffing resources to support it. It's something like we've talked about with Public Works off and on, and it's not something that they're interested in taking on with everything else that
Yeah.
they're responsible for.
is it something that, yeah,
And they used to do like bulky waste pickup and things like that, and so that, like people shopping in everyone's yards for. like-
Yeah, you put everything out and pretty soon you look at your front lawn, everything's gone.
Yeah.
Just going around.
Next year you see it in the neighbor's
Yeah.
pile.
Yeah,
That might be something.
We're reasonable, that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
Great sign, have
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
We might have
Spring
a
cleaning.
reduce, reuse, swap it
Yeah.
out, and the whole town, put your things out between this and this.
yeah, so that is
Yeah.
something that Public Works used to do. It is very resource intensive because it was literally their staff and their trucks going around and picking up everything when it was done. It wasn't something that they were able to contract.
No, but if an individual like in Cumberland and in Falmouth too, they do it. And
Yeah,
you
but-
put the stuff out in front of your own house, and if it doesn't, someone doesn't take it, you take it back in, you take your.
They
stuff out.
have people come and pick it up.
No, she's
Not all.
No, but I'm saying like the coordinated ones at the town, that's how it works, is you put out what you want, people can come and take it, but then the town will come and take whatever is remaining. So it is,
Well, they have that huge equipment auction by Beach Ridge
Yeah.
every year.
A couple times a year, yeah.
And it could be a way we have an event there and, yeah, we'd have to deal with whatever's left over, but I don't see those guys, they're selling stuff and everything's gone
Mhm.
and it's pretty impressive.
Who does that? Is it the town? Or is
I
it-
don't know who,
It's an
It-
auction.
it's an-
It is an
yeah.
auction.
it's an auction,
I think it's private.
Yeah,
but there's trucks and I mean, there's all kinds of things.
They're amazing. They don't leave anything.
Yeah.
The place is spotless. when they-
Well, anything you drop off and is auctioned, you take whatever they get for it. And at the end of the day, if the motorhome's there and it still runs and it's, sold on auction for $100, it's gone. But that's why it's gone. Everything goes.
I keep wishing some organization would do Halloween costumes as a fundraiser. It's like everybody donates their old Halloween costumes and then they have a day and sell them, but I have not yet. Any of the organizations.
I was happy to see there's a post on the Scarborough Maine Moms page that did really well for Halloween costume swap this year. So people are definitely interested in
Well,
that.
and
like-
I would almost reach out to like, it might not be such a need in Scarborough, but I know like my sister is a teacher in Minot. And she was like, I need any old costumes that you have that you want to get rid of, because they give them to their kids who may not, whose families may not be able to afford to buy them costumes and things like.
Is
that.
Ruth's Reuse still in business in Scarborough?
Yeah, well, it's in Portland, but yeah, by
Oh, it's
by
in-
Eco Maine.
Oh, okay, that's right. Cause that was always impressive to me that they get that stuff and then turn it back over to
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
Well, it goes without saying, Jamie, you exceeded expectations
Oh.
again, and this committee is fortunate to have your talents putting this together and making it happen, and it went very smoothly.
Yeah,
At
it
least-
was pretty.
At least
smooth.
the setup and I stayed 2 hours. But I was impressed with the organization. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you all for being all hands on deck that day. It takes a village.
How did they make those ice cream rolls?
Did you watch them? It was super cool.
I know your son enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, he did.
I tried to get a bite and he wouldn't give me
And
it.
my husband. Yeah, so it was like liquid ice cream that they put on this like really, really cold metal pan. And they add in the toppings and mix it all up, and then they
Moved it all up.
flatten it out and take, it looks like
like a
Putty knife.
putty knife
Putty knife,
essentially,
yeah.
and like just roll it.
YouTube it, there's some
Yeah.
YouTube, just YouTube rolled ice cream and
But
you'll
it-
get some.
I like the way that they do it so that you can like actually see what they're doing and.
Couldn't get enough of them.
Yeah, and their flavors are really interesting and yeah, my husband got like a brownie one and my son got a pumpkin pie one and it's delicious. Fantastic. Thank you for supporting the food trucks.
Yeah, and they're nice to have there too.
Yeah.
I like the lamb burgers.
They were great.
Ooh, and on that vein, I'm just gonna say staff update now, we're working on a food,
Sure.
local food vendor ordinance that is moving along. so-
Oh, hooray.
Yeah.
And that'll be helpful for a lot of things, a
It would be
lot of
a place
events.
where you could have a site, so we could have an actual designated space on particular zone property that it could.
That would be fun.
Well, isn't that part of Allagash? Didn't they,
No, they actually.
they are putting a
have-
pad,
They have a pad, but they can't do food truck.
they can't do a food truck, but they're hoping that someday.
They actually had some vendors, that will do like a permanent or semi-permanent sort of.
Oh, I gotcha, because they have that over in Evergreen Drive, I see the food truck.
Yeah, the air shrimping.
All right,
All right, so new business, wanted to talk about climate action plan since that is on our horizon and I gave you all some homework to start looking at some plans. Gave you some links to some, encouraged you to look for others, to look at, you know, what do these plans look like? What are you thinking, for Scarborough's plan? Are there elements of the plans that you looked at that you liked, that you didn't like? Things that we want to be sure to incorporate. I am starting to work on, the grant proposal, so this brainstorming session and getting your all, input from you all, will be helpful as I go through that process.
so this is another grant proposal? that
Yeah,
you're-
so this will be for a community action grant, to bring in funding, so.
Is that a GoPIF?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so the council in our current budget approved funding for a community action, or no, a climate action plan. But kind of with the understanding that we would seek grant funding to support that. And so the Governor's Office of Planning, Innovation in the Future, GoPIF, released their RFP for community action grants. So we will be applying for a community action grant for our climate action plan, lots of action. And this year, they've increased the maximum amount awarded from $50,000 to $75,000. Because they received some additional federal funding to kind of augment the state funding that goes towards that program. And so the proposals are due in December, so kind of getting everyone thinking about our plan, what we are hoping to achieve. So it's essentially going to be our energy plan on steroids.
it's great.
I like Sacco's best,
You did?
yeah, but I found just reading through all of them and some other towns too, that I had to, fix myself, because they were so fucking depressing. You know, fire isn't gonna catch it, then flood, then sickness.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's so depressing, though, it's gotta be done, it's just good.
That's one of the things we found, you do an energy audit in somebody's home and you're telling them how bad their home is. They just want to put in a granite countertop and put a for sale sign and get the hell out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta be careful.
I mean, I think that that's maybe why they're so bright and colorful to like break the news. Like you're reading it and getting depressed, but look at how pretty it is to look at.
You sound like my daughter, she's a senior and she was like, I think I'm gonna go into this. And she goes, no, I'll just be depressed all day. I'm gonna do something that makes money. Forget about it.
I like the idea that Portland and South Portland did theirs together, but then I
Yeah.
realized South Portland and Saco had both done.
Yeah.
Portland and, I know Portland went, electrify Portland, so
Yeah,
there,
it's
you
all
can't build a building with fossil fuel heating systems in it, supposedly. That's a tough sell,
But it's. the
but
right
Portland
stuff.
did it. It is the right but in Portland did it.
Are the new building codes that are coming out though, once we adopt that?
The 2021 codes are,
Fossil fuels?
well,
I haven't
yes
read-
and no. You can still probably put in a natural gas boiler, of something of that nature, but Portland did their electrify Portland and they got it passed. It's,
Well, how much new construction is there?
well, there isn't a lot of capacity left, but they building up, of course. The Bayside area is still a fairly decent area to do development. Gut rehabs are also included in that,
Wow,
because you see, you pull code.
yeah.
Yeah, if
And-
you do more than like a 50%.
And there's going to be a stretch code, and now is that something that this committee wants to take a look at and make a recommendation of
absolutely.
adopting the stretch code?
So I will share that, GoPIF also is going after a grant from the Department of Energy to provide technical assistance to municipalities who want to adopt a stretch code. So,
And yes, there's code money training,
Yeah.
also, and that's contingent on, adopting the newest code and then, that money's available, and I think there's gonna be some things coming in through the legislature, potentially moving MUBEC, which is the main uniform building and energy code, from state fire marshal's office to another operation within state government. But yes, the new codes are coming and probably will be around sometime in the first quarter of next year. So,
I was gonna say, are we out of step yet? There's a
we're,
timeframe where.
yeah, we can
Not
be
we,
one
the
code
town, the
cycle
state.
behind, so the 2024 is about to come out.
Yeah,
We're adopting the 2021, so we're one code edition
Yeah.
away, so we're kind of brought back into that. The stretch code just, it's fairly simple, and I believe it's just doing 5% better than the energy code. So I don't think it's a big lift to make this recommendation to town council.
mhm.
But I'll get more information on that because it's in rulemaking right now. And the AG's already seen it. So,
I mean, they will definitely need to see, right, like, the biggest question is going to be cost, which we kind of know, because what is with affordable housing and housing in general, just such a strong part of the conversation, requiring a higher standard is, I think, going to be it will be a tough.
yeah,
sell.
we can do some number crunching, but 5% isn't that much of a lift more. Then you already get diminishing returns on insulation levels and everything, so those aren't gonna really be affected. It's primarily the heating systems, cooling systems. And with the refrigerant change and everything like that, that's gonna open up all kinds of things, so. I think we should at least have that discussion, maybe a future agenda item
Mhm,
for next year.
Sure.
I like, are you,
Yeah.
sorry, just the breakdown of demographics at the beginning. I think that set a good clear tone for the
Mhm.
plan, and we could specifically talk about the population growth and maybe break down in household income and ages and just how that has changed. And then also to like, how many people are impacted by flooding and how that has changed with like the updated FEMA maps.
We have a lot of that data already
I would
from doing
assume so, yeah,
master
Yeah.
plan. Mm.
but just to make it pretty like Scarborough.
Yeah, yeah.
You got CIP approval to go out for it.
I was wondering, had you already done like a carbon inventory?
We haven't yet, so that will be part of the plan as
Yeah.
well.
I think that's helpful to say, figure out each, on average, a resident of Scarborough uses, 18 tons of carbon dioxide per year.
Mhm.
And as part of your action plan, like, we want to go to 16, 14,
Yeah.
10. That kind of gives you a metric.
Mhm.
And it's average, because then you can go after the the high carbon users, carbon dioxide users. Carbon emitters, right? And then to bring down overall average.
Yeah.
For the next 10, 20 years.
Mhm.
Jamie, what's the timing for going out with the RFP?
So, yeah, it'll be spring, summer. So, this, like I was saying, this grant that we're going to apply for is due in December. If it's awarded, we'll get funding in March. And then we'll go out to RFP, after that.
We got matching city funds too, right? Or did you get anything?
I'll have to go back and look,
can't
'cause
remember.
I think they were, the hope was that it would all be
grant,
through the
okay,
grant.
that's all.
Yeah,
And let's look for some case studies of new construction and of retrofits.
Mhm.
Because it's just not as hard as people make it sound.
yeah. Yeah, and you've got the retrofit experience to know how
It's
difficult,
not that bad.
yeah. But it would have been way easier if it had just been done.
Well, sure, but I think we need to be talking to the retrofit market.
Mhm.
We need to be talking. and
Existing stock, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of potential.
And I mean, I say again and again that we got the carbon footprint of the house by like 94%, buying nothing that won't pay for itself before the warranty runs out,
Mhm.
which isn't a very big lift.
Yep.
And yet, the number of people that I know well that have taken any of these steps after us is mostly not.
Mhm. It would be great to include maybe like a case study in here of your experience with retrofits and,
Or somebody else's, I mean, it doesn't have to be mine, but.
but I know you and it's.
I'm not, I just want to make it clear that I'm not trying to ask for attention.
No, no.
I am just trying,
On the cover.
yeah, well, that makes sense. I just. I mean, we were hesitant too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can
I think
approach
you're
a
a great
friend
testimony.
that has a house just down off of 114, you can see it, and he and his wife. Solar, heat pumps, everything, and maybe he can provide some context.
Yeah.
Cause he obviously drank the Kool-Aid
Mhm.
and drank it several times
Good
because
foolish.
it's tasty, huh?
Yeah, saved me all kinds of gas.
Jamie's a proud owner of a heat pump water heater.
I am, it was
Make that public
painful getting there. They're like.
I'm one of the few, they're very scarce in Maine right now. If you haven't got yours yet, try and get it soon.
Before next
I
Thursday.
was gonna say, didn't you say the rebate ends?
Yeah. Yep. So if you can find one, you should get one because it's a good deal. I know, I had 4 guys at Home Depot loading it into my car and they're like, this is a really good deal. I'm like, yeah, I know it's a really good deal. Like we sell Cadillacs for like, this is the Cadillac. You can't even buy, a really low end water heater for this price. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm looking for it.
That's why they're off the shelf.
Yeah. So they're very hard to find.
But now it's getting, early adopters have them, now mainstream needs to go and get them. And if you're on electric, public that hears this, if you got an electric water heater, it is such a slam dunk replacement. You've got the power, you've got the pipes, go get the heat pump. For sure. Anything else that we can do on this grant?
I would say just if you come across good examples, send them my way. If you've got other thoughts for things to that you want to make sure get included.
If you have a target for your first draft of the application, that
No, but I can probably have kind of a concept to you all for our next.
Next
if you
meeting
guys
or-
wanna take a look at it.
yeah, just maybe it would help put the final touches on it.
Yep.
And before you submit it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, it's due middle of December, so the timing for our next meeting would probably
So it won't really be a first draft, it'll be a very comprehensive. I know you, Jamie, you won't give us anything that's not,
Yeah, no, it'll be
Not your
kind of
best effort,
the
that's
the
for
scope
sure.
of work, and all of that. So, and then we can kind of, more will be flushed out as we do the RFP and things like that to, find whichever group will be, selected to help us with this.
Yep.
Yeah, and so there's lots of different, I mean, GP cog and Southern Maine Planning and Development, they've done a lot of them,
and then there are private firms also that are doing them. So if, if I've been kind of looking at like the acknowledgements for the, and information pages for the plans that I'd like to see who pulled those together so we can make sure that they receive our RFP when it goes out. So, yeah, if you have, others that have been involved in the development of plans, and had good experiences, pass that information on to me so we know who they worked with, and things like that. So it's always good to have firsthand knowledge of the groups that might be applying for this. And I plan to touch base with my kind of counterparts and
Like Falmouth? and-
Yeah.
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 Okay,
to see
You
what
got
their
it.
experience is like as well.
Which plan did you like best of the ones you sent?
I liked Baths.
Theirs is a draft.
Theirs is a draft, yeah, but I think it's close to being finalized. Cause their draft, well, I guess it was just released in September, but, it was fairly polished for a draft, so I think that they're wrapping things up, and I think theirs was done with a community action grant as well in the state. Great, and we can move on to updates.
Yeah.
Council,
Early voting is happening now, Monday through Thursday, up until next Thursday at the Public Safety Building from 7 in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. There's also early voting this coming Saturday from 8 to noon. If you want to take advantage of that. Otherwise, polls will be open at the high school, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
and you can still request an
And you
absentee
can still
ballot.
request an absentee ballot, got the ballot box out front, drop it off at your convenience. All the ballot issues are resolved. If you were in that group that received your federal state ballot first and then your municipal ballot afterwards, make sure you get that municipal ballot back. We will be welcoming 3 new counselors. They won't sit until the November 20th meeting. And so this is really a big transition for the council, for the next 6 weeks. Committees are kind of wrapped up, at this point. John Anderson and I, as finance chair and communications chair, are co-hosting Counselor Corner Live next Wednesday, October 30th at 6 p.m. The topic is prioritizing our priorities, as it applies to, kind of our bigger, CIP investments, library, school, community center. And just trying to figure out how the public would like us to make our decisions and align on some significant spending. And so all are welcome to attend that event. I think it's that. The news. Anyone have any questions?
big learning curve coming to the
Yes,
town
yes,
council.
it'll be a
that's
big,
for
it'll
sure.
be a big transition. This will be the first time we've had 3 brand new counselors. in
Well, the
quite
bill
some
is
time. And Bill's
gonna go, so
returning,
he's-
yeah.
Yeah, Bill's
Bill
got
knows the lay of the land,
experience, yeah. Great. Well, I'll just kick in on the planning board because I'm still mad that the week, while I was on vacation, they had the shortest planning board meeting ever.
Maybe that's not a
Ever.
coincidence.
Maybe. They only had one agenda item,
Okay. All
but,
right.
One agenda item Mondays.
well, we had 3, but
really
2
just
of them
one.
were, yeah, I know, we did. That is the update, really. We heard some more information on the FedEx terminal being proposed at the former Beach Ridge. It's probably one of the most vetted projects that I've been associated with, being on the planning board. But we did not approve anything last night or Monday night. We'll see it one more time, so there's probably another public comment period, and we're getting a lot of feedback.
Are there any energy sustainability issues that we should be aware of?
Well, they did put in some chargers. That was something that we're happy to see, but environmentally, I think their building is gonna be a good good building. There's nothing in our ordinances that make them put on renewables or anything
Right.
like that. Would they have the ability to? I think there's, you know, some angles that are right for that. But we have no teeth in that right now. Well, they're gonna have to, depends on when they get that permit, whether they, you know, they get it before the 2021 code.
But I mean, we can suggest it.
Yeah, we can always do that, and it's been suggested.
There was a conversation about water usage over there once upon a time.
Well, they have to do a 350, they're gonna drill 350 feet for their water. The abutters are concerned because most of them don't have drilled wells. And, you know, they're subject to weather and
What kind of wells do they have? Just the
just
real shallow?
shallow. Dug wells, and of course, we haven't had a lot of rain lately, and so they're nervous about that, and they feel like, you know, with this terminal going in, it's gonna hurt their water supply, but they've done the hydronics and we made the developer do sound analysis, and lighting is a concern, and we're putting them through the hoops on that. Hopefully they'll come back to the next meeting with all the things that we put them through kind of bulletized so that everybody knows how vetted this project was and the considerations that we at the planning board were taking because of the public comments we heard. And so that's the hope. We'll see. But that's the big thing, and you can share anything that you want on the horizon or whatever. Nudge, nudge, what's on the next agenda?
The Downs is coming forward with for our next meeting, a master plan amendment. They're moving forward with that core area, so.
The downtown?
The downtown kind of area, that's the exciting part. So I think we'll see more and more of that next year, so I'm excited to get that going.
Have they been able to attract any commercial tenants?
Yeah.
Large
Yeah.
ones, like, they've been talking about supermarket or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
That's what they're still, they have a letter of intent. Don't know what they. I vote
Who says Market Basket, who says Aldi's?
Oh,
No, not all. of them.
tricky.
Market basket.
Yeah. The mullahs.
Market basket would be nice.
Trader
And
Joe's would be
Ford
nicer.
thinks so.
Trader Joe's.
Oh, Trader Joe's.
Or both, both.
Whole Foods.
Trader Joe's and Perkins.
I love Trader
Right.
Joe's.
Look at us, look at us.
Dreaming.
I live right in the middle of both, but I go to New Hampshire because it's tax free.
But you claim it, right?
I don't know what you're saying.
No.
Autumn, yes, yes. you
Oh,
do.
yeah. Sure,
I put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
whatever you say.
Do you want to update on the conservation?
Yeah, so Conservation Commission is still working on a scaled back version of their environmental standards. So that went through ordinance committee a couple weeks ago. And even though we thought we had reached some consensus with the developers, there was strong opposition from the development community at the ordinance committee meeting. So that will have its first reading coming up, the first meeting in November.
How much did they need to back off? And
We are asking for a 25-foot setback from wetlands.
And that was a
With the-
problem.
You know, change is hard, Anton.
And some of their problem was not even a problem. It was their lack of understanding of how things actually worked and lack of listening to how things were actually applied. And so.
What's
Well,
really
he-
challenging, what's really challenging is this came to ordinance, you know. From a staff perspective, we were 99% of the way there. The ordinance committee came expecting to have Autumn do her presentation and then for us to have maybe some brief discussion about language. And then put it to council, and we listened to a half an hour of public
Developers.
comment from developers with all of these concerns and opposition, and you get put in this position where you're like,
Well, now you
I
can't do
thought we were
anything.
there,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
We put it to council anyway, but as I alluded to with this transition time on the council, this is a tricky time to put things to council for first read. And so I don't know if this is gonna be delayed or tabled or have
When
been
we-
Well,
sent back to
because
ordinance.
two of the members of ordinance committee are going to be
Gone.
leaving.
Jean Marie and John, so.
table it then.
The idea was to get it out of ordinance.
We're done.
We're done.
I'm done
We're
talking
done.
to people about it. I think we're.
And I
done.
think Autumn needs to
It's
just
like,
come to council and say.
We just gotta, council has to
Yeah.
tell us if they
When,
want
when
it.
you say
We-
developers, how many developers are you talking about? Scads? I mean, like,
No
Two,
developer wants to
three.
say, yes, we wanna add a 25-foot buffer, but we had a roundtable meeting and we came to consensus because we dropped down the distance
So
so far.
much.
So much that this was a reasonable buffer to allow for constructability and fewer impacts. And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And then they all went back and, oh, that didn't sound that great. Oh, it still hurts so bad.
is it?
No, that's.
Yeah, it was,
No,
Is
that's
it
bad.
two or three or four or 10 or, I mean. It's more than one.
Numbers, I mean,
It was multiple
It was
engineers
multiple
who worked
engineers who worked
for
for
various
multiple
developers in town,
Oh,
and then,
who speak with a high level of authority when they
Yeah.
make their public comment. It was.
Yeah, we can still just tell them.
Any of our peer reviewers?
What's the average setback in the other states, the typical setback?
other states are all over the place.
yeah, it varies.
Yeah, it varies.
I
We
don't
don't
think
have, we
25
currently
feet.
don't have a setback at all to wetlands, so you
Yeah.
can go right up against it.
In
I'm
in
sorry,
Massachusetts,
25
it's like 100 feet.
25 feet.
I would tell them like,
Not-
it's good, you know, agree to
That
this.
Seems like nothing.
Feel free to come to the meeting.
Yeah.
And add your testimony.
Well, does this committee wanna weigh in on this and make a recommendation to Jamie?
I mean, I haven't read it, but I would like to support it because gracious sake.
Doesn't seem like
25
a-
feet is nothing.
So, the way that this is going to work is it'll have a first reading on November 6th. It will be referred to planning board, so there will be a public hearing at planning board. It will go back to the council for a public hearing.
So the public hearing doesn't happen at the first reading.
No, I mean, people will
You
still
can make
make
public
comment.
comment.
You can make comment because it's on the agenda.
Yes. There will be a designated time for public hearing in December, I believe, is the way that, if all goes according to plan. There will be the public hearing at the November planning board meeting. And then, back to council for probably at their first meeting in December for a public hearing. And then they'll do second reading at the second meeting in December.
So maybe we should provide a letter to go into the record on the first read because of the timing of all of this in our meetings.
Can you send us the text of it?
Yeah, I will, and
It's not finished yet, so don't send them yet.
yeah, I'll send it when it's available, but I don't know that we will. But I think that there will be time either before the public hearing or before second reading / vote in December that this group. can provide.
Okay, if we can do that before January.
Yeah, before, well,
If it's on cue to be, decided in December, then I think this committee should provide some support.
yeah, I think
We send
that,
it to the leader too.
But
If we put out a letter, could we maybe get some more attention?
we could, and nothing says we can't.
Was that the only thing that triggered the objection, was the setback to the wetlands, or were there other objections?
that's the only thing that this is talking about at this
Yeah.
point.
We started out with tiered wetland protections going up over 10,000 square feet, different distances, 150 feet, whatnot. The 25 and 15 feet is the lowest requirement we started out with. We also had vernal pool protections, river stream protections, additional coastal bluff protections. We took everything away except the very minimum.
Oh,
So
Wasn't the original proposal also talking about setbacks from the street as well, increasing that? No?
No, but,
It's-
in part of the discussion, Autumn did say that, we do have large setbacks, frontage setbacks that could be perhaps reduced to accommodate.
To accommodate
a large setback.
that's a reasonable accommodation to make.
I would much rather have the buildings up against the road than right against
The wetland, yeah.
Because it would all be lawn anyway.
parking lot.
and parking.
Okay, well, we want to be helpful here.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be a reason for delay.
I think timeline wise, you guys will have one more meeting before it
Okay,
Yeah.
comes to the council for
So I'll be able to,
significant discussion.
I can provide a draft kind of memo and support for the next meeting.
Okay,
That you all can take. a look at.
excellent. That'd be
I'd
good.
like for us to say something about bare minimum. or
Yeah, I'd like to say,
no less, there should be more than like.
we
Well,
should
and that's
actually
kind of
have,
What we've said is that this represents the minimum, like it's providing minimal water quality protection. It's really geared towards constructability and providing a little bit of protection to buffer and filter nutrients, and other pollutants before it gets
Gets
into
to
the
the
wetland.
Honest to God, I don't know how you get that much closer to the wetlands.
I know.
What do they want, 15 feet?
Right now it's zero.
right now, they can go right up to it.
Nothing.
And,
They just gotta put a big rock so nobody encroaches on it.
and,
And roll them back a couple of.
And if you're building any kind of, retaining wall or parking system or anything like that, like literally there's equipment in the wetland. Like we're just, at this point, we're asking them for a 5-foot setback so that they have space for their equipment to construct this stuff. They want to go right up to the edge of the wetland. So, yeah.
It's pure greed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is.
Yeah,
Tell them
50
that you
feet.
Say no.
We need ordinances because that's the teeth. That's the teeth that go into the conversations that,
Does the state of, what is the state of Maine's regulation for setbacks from wetlands?
There are none until you get above a 30,000 square foot wetland. Or 20,000 square foot wetland. So it leaves a lot of the smaller wetlands unprotected.
But what the ordinance does do, it doesn't prohibit you from filling wetlands. You can still fill wetlands. We're not saying you can't. So that was part of the
But isn't-
misunderstanding.
Isn't
that will
filling- isn't
definitely-
filling wetlands a no-no?
But
You,
you can
it
do
has to be
it.
permitted and you,
yeah.
and you
Permit
pay.
it, you
and
pay
money.
or mitigate, but we're not saying you can't. So you can still do that.
So you
So
can't.
that was part of the.
We would like to be able to, but
I
that's.
didn't listen when
Fill them in
we've
and
been
it
told that.
becomes a meaningless. It's insanity.
well, it's a lot of money it costs a lot to fill them in.
And when there's a small piece in the middle of your upland property that's appropriate maybe to
Isolated.
fill. The ordinance wouldn't affect you at all. You just go fill it like you normally would and you have a great day. If you're filling a finger, maybe that's just doing enough for your parking, you just have to anticipate the amount you would need for that buffer as well. So.
And the flooding that you'll get because you no longer.
Well, yes.
I was impressed with what the Downs did on their road, with the river. That we just toured. I mean, that was just, it brought back the stream. It really did. It was, we walked it before, the before and the after, and it's just like, if you do things right, you can restore. Stuff that nature has, done bad from storms and things of that nature. Just, to me, it was an incredible, good job.
So the next thing that Conservation Commission will be taking up is tree protection, which I know is a topic that this group has.
Oh, devil, let's not bring the Holmes Road.
Well, that's part of
That's
the,
part of why.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is a topic that this group has kind of discussed in the past.
Well,
also.
we talked about it because of our solar ordinance and,
And the idea that somebody could just take out a whole forest.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it was,
Solar panels was just like, oh, that's not.
But they can take out a whole forest to put in a subdivision
Right.
and
yeah,
that forest will never go back. So,
What is going in on Holmes Road there where they took out the whole forest? Anyone
we do
knows?
not know.
We have no proposals.
just a landowner that wanted firewood.
One of my neighbors said they were gonna put a buffalo farm in.
Yeah, I think it's a horse, I think
I-
it's for
Like
horses.
they have forest land in the back when I drove around, and just being really nosy. Um,
Yeah, I think it's
That's
horse
sort of-
pasture.
what it looks like to me as well, but. I don't have any plans and we don't have any regulations for.
Cutting down trees on your own
Your
property.
successor, Jay Chase, talked about that for years, having something related to tree ordinance.
Well, and we've had a situation in our neighborhood where there was like a, essentially forest buffer between a couple of properties. And the next person who bought it just took them all down and then their contractor went weird and the trees just laid on their sides for
Well,
about 3
see,
years.
That was part of the problem that Jay was confronting, which was you can put an ordinance in, but then in 10 or 15 years, somebody comes along and they bought the property, right? And then they cut the trees down and they go, oh, I didn't know.
Well, that's about every ordinance.
Yeah, that's every ordinance.
You know, I know, but still, it defeats the whole purpose of having an ordinance, which is to keep the trees from being cut down, right?
Yeah, that's not a good argument for not having them. Because I have an ordinance about a lot of things that people, we send violation letters out on a regular basis. So it just depends on how mean you wanna. James is a really nice person.
I'm not gonna.
Jackie is a really nice person. I've met him. He's super nice.
Are you gonna get in touch with your inner mean woman?
Oh,
I'm from.
she's
I know where you're from.
he has
Yeah.
no trouble saying no and
I'm in touch
putting
with
down the hammer.
Yeah.
She's the right person in his right chair.
I could go, I have worked for communities that we have removed ugly things from people's front yards on a regular basis and things. I could go really hardcore on code enforcement violations, but I live in Maine and it's very peaceful. I have experience with all that.
Well, that'd be an interesting conversation.
It sure
that-
will, especially on the heels of the wetland setback
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Transportation committee?
I'm gonna defer to Autumn.
So last night, the transportation, committee, we reviewed the final draft of we're calling it something a little bit different, I think. Right now, it's probably more of a townwide transportation inventory study, because we all agree that it's not a master plan. And so the name is really important, and we're hoping to get that in front of council at a workshop in December. Those 3 new counselors are gonna be really overwhelmed right
Ready.
before the holidays.
Good.
Ready.
But so that's where we're moving forward with that. And then we're hoping to get that adopted or accepted through council and then start the implementation. John Anderson is the liaison for that group, and he talked about the council setting the goals. And what the committee recommended for a council goal is to focus on extension of sidewalks for pedestrian connectivity. That is really something we really need to focus on. So hopefully that was a good enough goal that will make the cut for 2025.
Start thinking, this group should start thinking about that too.
Good luck.
And then lastly is the planning project. So the open space plan, still on track to have a draft released to the public late this year. So within the next 2 months or so. And having it wrapped up early next year. So again, I think we're still light on our survey responses. So if you can continue sharing out that link, that would be helpful.
Yeah, $100,000 to spend. Where are you gonna put it?
Yeah.
Good
It literally
survey. I
takes
like
2
that. I like
minutes.
the way it was set up.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, how should we invest limited resources for land conservation?
And is that available on the town website? Okay.
Yep, I can send it out again. I've sent it after the last meeting as well.
I was just wanting to post it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can search like open space plan, if you go to what's happening,
QR code.
there's an open space plan page that links to the survey and things like that.
When you cut down all the trees, does that create open space?
Moving on.
And then vulnerability assessment, our contractors are actually out doing field work as we speak, looking at pump stations, taking measurements and doing survey work at our sanitary sewer pump stations. Those tend to be the most vulnerable pieces of infrastructure because they are in low-lying areas. And so looking at pump stations today, our vulnerable pump stations, to get a better understanding of how vulnerable are they, what kind of potential upgrades should the sewer district be thinking about for the future to keep those online or get them back online quickly and after a flooding situation like we had in January.
Is it just private, right? Is it just public pump stations? Or private can?
They're looking at the private ones also, any of them that are vulnerable. Because even though they're private pump stations, the sanitary district still, yeah, it's all part of their system. So, and then that one, we will be looking at selecting some pilot projects to do a little bit of a deeper dive in terms of recommendations and initial design work so that the town will have that information to go after grant funds or capital funds and things like that to start addressing some of the sites that are identified, some of the needs around town. And so again, still on track to have a draft available in the spring and have that project wrapped up next summer. As a first step for becoming more resilient, and both the open space plan and vulnerability assessment will be looped into
All
our
together.
climate it'll be part of our climate action.
Yeah, Route 1,
Yep, Route 1. DOT is still
Pine
working
Point
on,
Road.
DOT is still working on the Route 1 project. They are due to provide me an update to see where things stand. They had initially thought that they would have preliminary designs available this fall. So we need to check in and see where that stands. So, I think that the modeling that they paid to do is saying that really we should have a bridge span at one over the marsh, and, I don't think they're crazy about that idea. So we'll see where things go from there.
That makes a lot of sense though.
In terms of usefulness, like use of the road and, health of the marsh, it's going to be really important to move water upstream if we want to continue to have a Scarborough Marsh.
Yes,
Under
Really
level
limited
rise
water
conditions.
pathway.
and it does so much good for us
Yeah,
when we have these
to manage-
events.
To manage flooding.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Very, very,
that's
we've got
what-
some excellent examples of how
How-
wetlands buffer flooding
Yeah, yeah,
and how important they are. Yeah, it's the difference between our inland road, well, our roads along the marsh where they were flooded, but they weren't destroyed, as opposed to our seaward facing roads without the buffer of the marsh, how they were just destroyed from
Destroyed,
the
yep.
wave action
Yep.
and all of that. So, yeah, the marsh is important for so many reasons, and flooding control is just one of them.
Well, New Orleans is the case example in that.
There was a great article in some paper this last week about remarshing a corner of England.
I read that too.
It was.
remarching.
Summer,
Oh,
England, yeah.
Is that where it was? Yeah. It was fascinating.
wow.
That they've reclaimed a bunch of that land and have been working over a decade or so.
Everybody's happy.
Huh?
And the people were happy.
They're not fighting about it, huh?
Not anymore.
What's with us?
There was some fighting initially, but not anymore.
Yeah, you see the benefit.
When we had our meetings at Higgins and at Pine Point, I was really surprised with the residents. Cause we talked about the buyback program and there's a lot of potentials, and it's kind of like, I know it's not gonna work out for us forever.
Yeah,
You know, people are starting to get pretty reasonable.
yeah, they're.
Well, there
taking the risk.
there's enough examples on.
Yeah.
They're reading between the lines.
Well, and it was at their doorstep, right?
Yeah.
Where it was, yeah, so we had been isolated up until the past couple of
Yeah.
years in terms of our climate, natural disasters.
I'm just glad we're taking action. They're doing something because we've learned.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a plan.
Well, we gotta make an actionable plan. All right, we won't get into how we make a plan.
Well, first we have to have a concept.
We gotta think of a title.
Sorry, guys.
We're working on it.
Sorry, I had to work that in.
That was really good.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so just real quickly, need to talk about our next meeting date. So
Thanksgiving is.
Thanksgiving's the 28th, our meeting would be the 27th. So typically what we do is we push our meeting to the following week, which would be December 4th. And then just to note that our December meeting is on Christmas, so we won't be meeting. So typically we miss December as a meeting date.
When would be a good time for us to meet so that we can help you with your to-do list?
Yeah, I think December 4th. would
Okay,
be
if that
fine.
works,
Yeah, so we'll plan to meet December 4th, not meet again in December, and then go to our regular meeting date in January, which I think is like the 22nd, maybe. Maybe.
Yes, that's right.
22nd?
Look at that.
And then you'll adjust that on the calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody have any closing comments? We have a motion to adjourn? Somebody say yes, so we're not.
Yes, 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 let's go.